Hello everyone, Richard Macias here. The issue that I'm going to talk about today is something that we hear about in the news more frequently than we should. It's something that has the potential to affect each and every one of us every day of our lives. What is it that I'm talking about, you might ask? Well, what I'm talking about is the mass shooting and murdering of people using guns. It's not a mental health issue, and it's not an overall crime issue. It's a gun violence issue that we have in America today. And it is because we have way too many guns in society. The specific things I would like to talk about are: number one, more guns equal more gun violence. Number two, gun bans and other control measures work if they are done correctly. According to data from the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, America has far more gun deaths than any other developed country, and this is because we have way too many guns in society. We have far higher levels of gun ownership, with more than 300 million guns that are privately owned. We have 6 times the gun homicide rate of Canada, 7 times that of Sweden, and 16 times that of Germany. The US makes up less than 5% of the world's population, yet we own roughly 42% of all of the world's privately owned firearms. 31 of the world's mass shooters also come from America. Info taken from CNN shows a rate in America of 88 guns per people. That's over 1.5 times more than Yemen, which is basically a war-torn, failed state of Yemen, where their rate of gun ownership is roughly 54 guns per 100 people. The Harvard School of Public Health Injury Control Research Center has found that places with more guns naturally have more gun deaths. There are higher rates of homicide, higher rates of suicide, higher rates of domestic violence related deaths, and higher rates of violence against police officers. Now, guns are not the only contributors to violence. Other factors include poverty, urbanization, and alcohol consumption, but researchers have found, when controlled for these variables, time and time again, that America's love for guns are a direct contributor to the high levels of gun ownership, are the major reason the US has more gun violence than its developed peers. So I gave you a lot of data showing the outrageous number of guns that are in America today, and how these rates relate to all of the gun violence that we see. With that information, you might ask yourself, how do we fix this? Well, the answer is plainly obvious. We need more effective gun bans and more gun control on the guns that are left after the gun ban. And that leads to my next point, which is gun control, when done correctly, can and does work. A review of 130 studies in 10 countries that was published in Epidemiologic Review found that new legal restrictions on owning and purchasing guns tended to be followed by a major drop in gun violence. One major example of this happened in Australia. As we have seen here in America far too often, they had a mass shooting in Port Arthur in 1996, which resulted in the deaths of 35 people with 23 additional injured. The government, as a response to that, introduced legislation that banned automatic and semi-automatic rifles and shotguns. They implemented a mandatory gun buyback program and bought back 650 of the newly banned guns, and established a registry of all guns owned in the country, and required permits for all new gun purchases. And what were the results? Well, the gun homicide rate dropped 42% in the 7 years after the law passed, and the suicide rate fell by 57%. In the 18 years leading up to Australia's gun control law, there have been 13 gun massacres that resulted in more than 100 deaths. Since the law was passed, there have not been any gun massacres in Australia. The gun problem in America is to the point where universal background checks, restrictions on people with mental illness owning guns, and assault weapon bans will not and does not fix the problem. In our government, few on the left and almost none on the right are willing to go further and even attempt to emulate what Australia has done, which is essentially fix the problem with legal confiscation program that takes away the most violent guns and keeps track of the remaining guns that are legally owned. We can see that the idea of real and effective legislation could and does save lives. We just need our elected leaders to believe in this and to realize this. So in closing, this is an issue that we all face daily in our lives. I hope that with the information I gave you, you will be able to see that it's time we face the truth, start to make the changes that can have a real impact on saving lives in America. I thank you for listening to me today, and have a good day.